This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone, both virtually and folks that came here in person. I'd like you to welcome you to this public hearing. On behalf of the Town Board of North Elba, I'd like to open. Art, I'll turn things to you.
Okay, on behalf of the village, I'd like to open the public hearing as well.
Who's going to read? Okay.
Please take notice that the Town Board of the Town of North Elba and Village Board of the Village of Lake Placid will hold a joint public hearing on Friday, December 16, 2022 at 6 p.m. at Town Hall, 2693 Main Street, Lake Placid, New York, to consider a local law to amend the Village of Lake Placid, Town of North Elba Land Use Code. The text of the proposed law is available for inspection by any interested person at the offices of the Village Clerk or Town Clerk, 2693 Main Street, Lake Placid, New York, as well as www.northelba.org and www.villageoflakeplacid.ny.gov. All interested persons are invited to participate in the public hearing and will be given an opportunity to be heard. The meeting will also be available via GoToMeeting, meet.goto.com/LPV, or dial 1-872-240-3212, code 690-687-301. Signed, Lori Dudley, Town Clerk, and Anita A. Esling, Village Clerk.
Derek, if I could jump in, maybe we could also start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
That sounds great. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America,
One nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Art. Anita, are you going to run things like?
Where's our lawyer?
I plan to, we didn't take a list of speakers because there are not.
There's so many of
them.
So we can work our way through the crowd.
Yeah, so I guess if anyone present here at the town hall wants to raise their hand and speak.
And just state your full name.
Yes, thank you. State your full name and speak.
And if everyone except for Art and Rick could mute themselves.
Yeah, I can.
Oh, I think they did.
Okay.
It's very quiet now.
Whoever it was.
Thank you.
Good.
We have a speaker. Please stand and state your name.
Head back here. It's been a very snowy day, as we all know. Stacia Takach. The reason I'm here, and it's not going to be very long talk, is I'm just concerned again about the removal of bed and breakfast, because the backbone of this law is that we have a problem with affordable housing or workforce housing. There's a big difference between a hosted STR and a bed and breakfast. A bed and breakfast allows for an owner or operator to live there. The STR that's hosted only allows for an owner to live there. So I feel that it is probably just an accidental consequence that's happening from this removal, but I think you should take a look at it. Take a step back. This town was also built on bed and breakfasts. Like, that was how people traveled. I mean, Dean Dietrich and I talked about this at the summer forum. He said everybody came to a bed and breakfast. Everybody stayed with one. That's how we got here. So I don't understand how we're removing one building block. I'm not saying the building block, one building block from our community, from our history. So I think it's good food for thought, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. And Heather, please stand and state your name.
I'm Brooks Reynolds, and I just want to say, I think that the regulations you guys have put into place are really good ones. And from a vacation rental management standpoint, we're happy to help enforce those regulations and work with you guys to, the quiet hours and everything, and keep down on some of these issues that are occurring. And I think a lot of other people, in this position in town would probably feel the same way. That, personally, I just get really nervous about the economic impact to our street, our main street, and our restaurants and shops, and, with a huge decrease in the number of potential families that are staying and vacation rentals, not being able to fill those spots. Again, I'm nervous for the town a little bit, and just kind of plead that everybody really take that into consideration again. That's it, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else here in person cares to speak? Please stand and state your name.
Michael Takach. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything new to say, but try to hit to the highlights from before. I mean, we started with the Pledge of Allegiance, which, great song, great anthem, great theme. It says liberty for all. And here we are, we start a meeting where we're about to remove liberties from a lot of residents here. Didn't seem that fitting to me. I understand the concern of rentals, and some people are just really not liking that visitors come to Lake Placid in that fashion. But I think we're really punishing locals who make some means of income, whether they work at a rental, they help manage a rental, they own a rental. It seems like we're punishing the wrong people here. We're concerned about how the guests perform while they're in Lake Placid, but we're not really taking anything away from the guests. We're only taking things away from the residents, and I understand we're also taking some rights away from non-resident owners, which I know have been deemed as evil people as well, and that's fine. But I think the detriment that's going to be caused to a lot of the local workers and local owners is, like Brooke said, would require another look. I know it's the 24th hour here, but I think it deserves to be stated again. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present who wants to speak? Is there anyone online who wants to speak? Can you raise your hand virtually?
And then state your full name before you speak.
Or turn your camera on and raise your hand? Okay. Andrea 1, go ahead, please. What's your last name?
Hi, it's Andrea Yakovidas, not Andrea 1.
Thank you. Sorry about
That's okay. Everyone makes that mistake. So I have a few concerns with regards to the regulation, specifically with what's going on in the districts that are zoned for business and commercial use. And some of this stems from the revitalization of the buildings in general, which I think, it's wonderful what's happening with Lake Placid, and it is having a lot of revitalization right now. People are pouring a lot of money into these old buildings, making them safe again, beautifying them, making them modern for the modern traveler. And the concern with limiting the amount of short-term rentals, which will allow that person that is actually going in to better these properties from being able to recuperate the funds that they have poured into it for safety and beautification is very problematic, especially with what's going on with inflation right now. And I would hope that you take that into consideration, because if you alienate those people and you put restrictions on those people from being able to recuperate the money and actually have a business in a business area that is for profit, there's no blanketing, no one's trying to hide that. What you're going to do is you're going to push the small business owner out, which is what we want Lake Placid based on from every conversation I've had, and you're only going to allow room for the more commercial establishments to come in. So I would ask that before you put anything in play in those commercial areas, that you sit down and you really take a deep dive in to what the recuperation of costs is, and whether or not the regulations that you're putting in place is going to alienate the small business owner. And if you need numbers and things like that, if you're not working with somebody in that construction industry or renovation industry right now, I'm sure that there are people that would happily help to give you some insight into that, so that you have the resources to make an educated decision before putting a law in place. Because once that law is in place, it becomes very difficult to revoke it. and takes a lot of time. The other thing that I would also say is many people purchase the property before these potential changes were put into place. And we have started in on projects with the foresight of being able to recuperate on them. So if those people that previously purchased aren't being able to be grandfathered into the old terms, and would have to abide by future ones, like the limitations that are being put on how many rentals you can have based on the number of units in a building, that could be super detrimental to them as well. So people that are doing future buying, they can base their projections on what the laws are at that time. But the people that already purchased, it, you know, the position that you would end up putting them in could potentially make them falter on their mortgages and things like that. And then they would have to sell their properties to people that could afford it. And again, going back to bigger corporate buying and stuff like that, that would be coming into town. So those are probably my two biggest points based on the new items that I've read. And if anything else comes up during the meeting, I might raise my hand again, but I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Andrea. Angela Hawley, I see you have your hand up. If you go ahead, please.
Hi, my name is Angela Hawley. I'd like to ask the board to reconsider the proposed changes for the Gateway Corridor in Main Street. Currently, there are owners in the middle of planning projects that will be highly affected by these changes. If you could please reconsider removing the restrictions on the 3 or more units in the Gateway Corridor in Main Street, or add definition to the new restrictions that only allow changes after the change of ownership, allowing current building owners to obtain permits for all apartments.
Is that it? Thank you.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else online who would like to speak?
I'm just gonna say, we should have laid some ground rules down first. I'm not gonna hold everyone to the 3-minute thing, but it is a one comment. It's not a conversation. It's a one comment kind of night.
Shh.
Okay, Warren, go ahead.
Chris
Chris
first.
Okay, Chris, go ahead, please.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi, Chris Kaldrovics. I just have a couple of things, and I'll be brief. One, I thank you for all the hard work on this. I know it's been a lot. I think it's coming to closure, which is great. First point was on hosted, was if there's an opportunity not to be an owner as the person who's living in the home, and that was a point. It's not a major sticking point for me, but I think I know there's opportunities to have a local person live in an apartment versus someone who owns the home. So that's one comment to say, well, hosted being someone that's responsible for the property that is living there. Number two, and not a sticking point for me personally, but I think it should reconsider the passing of ownership to your children, which also brings up some things around if you want to create an LLC to protect yourself against liability or estate tax. It's also a consideration. I did reach out to Janet on a few items. I didn't get all the answers I wanted back yet, but my point was not just about so the kids could rent it. That to me is not as relevant, but there is things around liability limitations and around inheritance tax in the state of New York if your property is of a certain value that I think should be considered, and that could be changed in the future, but it's a point I wanted to bring up. Another point is I think the 90-day rule is a good starting point, but I think with where the town's going and the village is going, I think allowing short-term rentals to be 120 is going to pour more money into the town. For me personally, it's not a big sticking point. I think the 90 days is fair, but I look at the opportunity that's available for cleaners and handymen and contractors and restaurants and that kind of stuff. I think that 120-day rule would pour more money into the town in the village. I think that would be a good move. And I'll close on, to me, this is about governance. This is about people, whether you're an owner that lives there, you own long-term rentals, short-term rentals, you're a business owner, you're a member of the community. you're responsible and accountable to manage your property, who stay in your property, whether you're the owner and that's guests, or your kids or anybody else. And I think that's the spirit of it. And I think that the enforcement aspect, as that it comes better, we'll see that you have a good contributing folks to the community. And I do 100% agree with governing the number of short-term rentals. I think over time, these rules will evolve, but I think that's a critical component. And that's pretty much all I had to say.
Thank you. Warren, I think you're next.
Hi, it's Eric Warren. We've been watching all the meetings and trying to keep track, but I don't think, oh, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay. My screen was telling me nobody was talking, sorry. I don't think I've heard anybody mention since it happened, but the Fifth Circuit Court has had a case and determined that the Federal Appeals Court determined that this discrimination between hosted and unhosted is a violation of the 10th Amendment of the Constitution. I haven't heard anybody comment about that. It seems to me that if Lake Placid goes ahead, that somewhere in the country, someone's going to try to create another case so that there will be a circuit split or something. I'm not an attorney. I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have heard about this or if your attorneys talk to you, but it could end up being a huge legal fight with Lake Placid and STR owners and all of, Airbnb and VRBO and everybody. And I don't know if that's something Lake Placid really wants to pick. So I wish you guys would talk about that, because it sounds to me like it's a very, very bad idea to continue down that road. And it might just be better to do what I think I've suggested before is, everyone on both sides of this or all sides seem to agree that the nuisance laws are something that everybody wants and should be enforced properly, and get those changes done and start enforcing the nuisance rules properly, and then work out the housing affordability issues or other issues, farther down the line. Just go with what everybody agrees with. So that's my comment.
Thank you, Eric. Anyone else either in person or online who's decided they want to give us? Nope. Jillian, please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Apologies, I'm at home with the flu, so 'tis the season, but I'll keep this brief. I think you probably know where I'm coming at with my comments, and it's just to really, really reconsider your thoughts on hosted rentals and a wait list in our communities. Of course, I understand that the purpose of this law is to try to get STRs out of our communities, but if allowing hosted rentals allows for people who live here full time to more easily keep their homes, I think a wait list could be incredibly detrimental. And furthermore, your law is ironclad when it comes to hosted rentals. It's very easy to understand. You need to be a full-time resident on site for the duration of any rental. And I understand why you have that. It's to keep issues from happening in these communities, and also holding owners accountable to their neighbors and their environments. I certainly wouldn't want to be a detriment to my neighborhood. I'm very new to my neighborhood and I'm just starting to build relationships with my neighbors. The gentleman across the street plowed my driveway for me today. I in no means want to cause havoc in my neighborhood, but getting a hosted rental permit would drastically make me affording my home and staying part of this community way easier. I understand where you're coming from. I think, your approach to how you have written your law regarding hosted rentals, I definitely have faith in it in terms of, keeping it to be not a nuisance within our community. So I've said this piece probably in every meeting so far. I would kick myself if I didn't try at every meeting to vocalize this for myself and other locals who feel very similarly. But again, I know this is a very long process. I appreciate all that you're doing. And yeah, just again to reconsider that hosted wait list. Thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. Anyone else online or in person?
With that being said, before I close this public hearing on behalf of the town board, I'd like everyone to know that we will leave open for comments until the close of business Monday, the 19th.
Written comment
Written comments.
to either clerk.
Art, will you do the same?
Yes, we will.
Okay, with that being said, I'll take a motion to close this public hearing. Jason, second. Emily, all in favor? Aye.
Art doesn't have a.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah,
have a
I don't have a quorum, but I will close this meeting on behalf of the village.
Thank you, Art. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
So,